Click the links, join the channel here over at SubScribeStar. So welcome to Derry, Maine, I think, where the lesson is that small, white, peaceful towns are the real danger in America, not the shape-shifting alien from beyond time and space, but istophobicism. So they're doing a prequel to Stephen King's It, and on a similar note of absolute horror, the Vagina Cell Femtwats are doing a Narnia remake, where they just hail Satan and sacrifice Christian babies to their dark blood gods. Then they'll have people in the theater who will just fuck the audience in the ass until they can escape, and then hopefully burn the theater down and nuke it from orbit. I'm trying to say that Hollywood is just going to be this endless cocaine-fueled echo chamber of insufferable theater kid douchebags. Hey guys, follow me here. The priest in the small town, he's going to be in a league with the worm, and under the church is the pathway to the underworld. Yeah, Hollywood, I think we've actually seen that before. Maybe try a synagogue this time, perhaps a mosque. If you have the guts, it might hit a little bit harder. Don't hold your breath on that. So the thing is, there's no turnaround on the horizon for Hollywood, is what I'm saying. It's just sodomy and cocaine-fueled writers with an algebra function box where instead of f of x to solve for y, all the storylines go in and come out anti-white and anti-Christian. All the antagonists magically come out fair with light hair and eyes. I mean, you'd have to be sleeping pretty deeply not to see this stuff. People should be shamed about talking about Hollywood. It should have the status of adults talking about astrology or flat Earth. Anyway, this is going to suck donkey balls for the foreseeable future. So in their benzo and espresso-fueled brilliance, they come back to Stephen King, who is admittedly a good author and has written great scenes in books and great short stories or novellas also. But I don't think he's written a great book because he gets in his own way. And he's had a long addiction issue, which might have inspired him a little bit, but I think also took it. I think it affected his judgment in his stories. He inserts too much of his mental illness, and he's got all kinds of axes to grind in his stories. But he does have great scenes, settings, and characters, which is more than most writers can say. And the thing is, somebody could edit his books and tighten them up enough to make them a lot better, which I'm sure he wouldn't allow because he's kind of too high on his own supply. And maybe one of his better books was Salem's Lot, and then his short story called Jerusalem's Lot, or The Hotel Room at the End of the Hall. I think it was Room 13 was one of the short stories, or Crouch End. And then the novella that stuck out was The Body, which was made into the mediocre movie Stand By Me, which a lot of people liked, but if you read the book, you'd see how disappointing the movie was. And it wasn't a great book, but it had great scenes, and some of the best settings were small town, 50s, 60s, anywhere America, back when America was an actual country with a future, instead of just an economic zone controlled by filthy bankers. The stories he wrote only worked because they were set in a young country that still had social cohesion and an identity, a country that was on the path to greatness at the time, literally on the path to the stars. And that nail in the coffin was, of course, the Hart-Celler Act and integration, which killed the nation and replaced it with a commercial globalist experiment accomplished all without a civil war. Americans just bent over and accepted their fate. None of his stories could be moved forward to the modern age. The stories needed a background country that had a soul, not a country of strangers who don't even speak the same language and have all balkanized and hate each other. To watch movies that depict America before it replaced the heritage Americans is to look at a different and obviously better world. And to be fair, cell phones and modern technology have killed a lot of storytelling from many different facets of the crystal. And even when there are good written stories, when they get made into movies, everyone's going to be black and gay, and everyone hates that. So most movies are kind of dead on arrival. And then when you point out that everyone hates that on social media, people attack the speaker, and then you point out, well, you didn't see the movie either. And they don't have a response to that, because that's the bottom line is Hollywood is in deep trouble because people are just not on board with all this kind of woke stuff. So the Mary Sue is gushing over the It prequel, and it will be diverse, translation, gay and black, and will focus on racism, which nobody cares about anymore. At least they don't put their money where their mouth is, usually because it has a dick in it. Now, in the It story, racism actually did have some minor elements in the story, but it wasn't a main issue at all. It was just one of the tiny ways that the demon, the space alien, manipulated the townspeople. It was just a bit of the story, and more importantly, the audience has no interest in listening to domestic terrorists bitch and moan for 90 minutes, or this will probably even be longer, probably a little more like 2 hours, about these evil white characters. That ship sailed. People are singing along to Kanye's song now, which is very catchy. But a movie not making money, it won't stop them from making the movie. That the money is not the key issue for Hollywood. The propaganda is. But one of the things that Stephen King did well was create these fictional towns that are believable. Kind of a Ray Bradbury. God, what was that play, short story? You know the one I'm talking about. It's like the scary town of space aliens, and they all turn on each other. Where the town is believable, but everything is subtly wrong. And this is a theme that is throughout all of his book universe. And where the towns can be disturbing and they have kind of a subcurrent of evil, but only the kids are really aware of what's going on. One of the scenes of small town horror is that the kids go missing too often, and the missing pictures go up, but the kids know that when somebody goes missing, they never come back. And King describes that there are all these missing kids signs all over town, but it's like the adults just don't see them, and then the signs get washed away or covered over with garage sale signs, and the kids in the town know how screwed up the situation is. Not just that many kids go missing off with the low men for experiments for the breakers from the Dark Tower, or into the woods to be eaten by aliens. I forget the name of that book. It was the spaceship was in the Maine woods or something, or the Wendigo from Pet Cemetery, or maybe Children of the Corn. But the weird thing is how adults just accept that kids in their small town disappear. It's this background noise in the town of terror and constant low-grade anxiety, like the town has a spell over it, and you have to leave it to see it. In The Body, he was able to, the one that's made the movie Stand By Me, he was able to set the tone in the town, and then when they were hiking out in the woods in the 50s or 60s, there was something in the woods, and the horror works because in America at that time, somewhere in the Northeast, if you were camping in the woods in the 50s, the woods were really empty. It was you, the stars, no cell phone, no GPS. You stayed on the trail or you were probably going to die. The further back you go, the possibility of the supernatural seemed more real because people were more isolated. Not at the individual level like we are now, but at the house, neighborhood, and town level. It was a much better civilization. There wasn't the homogenous McDonald's TV world people that we have today, where different towns back then looked different. You had regional accents were stronger, and you can kind of think of nodes and networks where your influence was local. It was your family, your church, your elk club, or whatever you're into. Now the influence and control is top-down, disseminated from the center point of globalist media, where it's one source going out to everyone to control people, to have the same lack of morals, to set the ethics for the country, accept diversity, tolerate, AIDS, monkeypox, BLM, domestic terrorism is actually your fault. Just be good debt slaves and pay your taxes for foreign wars. People don't want to admit how powerful TV is. Most things the sleeping normie believes and takes for granted, where they think they know things, is from TVs or movie. Now, to be fair, TV has peaked a few years ago and is on the decline because of computers, cell phones, tablets, networks, and social media. Like the ability to record videos and post them online is slowly changing the narrative. We're still under their iron hand in a velvet glove, but we're slowly escaping because we're nucleating and propagating our own narratives and counter narratives. It's kind of hard to explain how the wonder was taken out of the world. I mean, if you're over a certain age, you know what I'm talking about. Via the rise of TV and its overarching control, it set the narrative so powerfully. So many people would hear the most insane things from fictional movies or equally fictional news, and they would just accept it without critical evaluation. If they saw it on TV, well, it must have some truth at the source, and you remind them that they just saw a fictional movie. And consciously they know it, but subconsciously the programming still works. The only way out is just to not watch TV or movies at all, or only watch the censored, politically incorrect conspiracy theory stuff that's not allowed in the mainstream and not allowed on YouTube anymore. That stuff will get you kicked off. So in the 50s and 60s, when kids were hiking in the woods, they went into a different world that by the 90s mostly had been destroyed. In The Body and in Pet Sematary, spelled with an S, King was able to make the woods dark and dangerous. Now it's just where illegals have weed farms and will shoot you if you hike across them. It takes all the mystery out of things. Anyway, so taking the It story and making a prequel to lecture people on racism begs a question, well, why are we forced together in the first place? Isn't the logical solution to separate from each other? If people have their own areas, their own towns or states, then there's no problem. We don't actually have to be together. Clearly, this diversity experiment has been a massive failure. It's like I'm trying to get kicked off YouTube. And this triggers people when I suggest it on Twitter because the TV told them to have an emotional response and respond with a ad hominem. The It story is about some evil alien entity that crash lands on Earth. It feeds off of fear, and it's been in that kind of similar to the Library Police. I've read like all his stuff, where there's like a shape-shifting witch who feeds on fear. And it's been in that area for maybe millions of years, just waiting for humans to become fully human, fully sentient and sapient, because without those higher thought processes, they can't really experience terror. There's a scene where the kids burn some incense and they've got like, they're underground in their fort or something. They have an astral projection to see visions, and they learn the history of their area and the monsters, and it's either a demon or some evil alien. In the book, there are the main kids who are teamed up, but then there's another group of boys who are jerks, but one of them is an actual sociopath. And King is able to scare the hell out of the audience with this kid, but that only works in the settings in the past, because nowadays that kid would be on medication or probably some Epstein in Hollywood or maybe the governor of California. The good magic and terror of the past is completely gone. Hollywood has done something. It created a fictional world that is hyper reality, where if it's not on screen, it's not as real as the real world. But it did start to decline with the rise of social media and cell phones. So by 2005, was that kind of when MySpace came on the scene, which felt organic. And then Facebook came along and, of course, blew it away. But Facebook didn't feel organic. It's probably because Facebook's probably a DARPA project. There's a whole interesting history of Facebook that doesn't get talked about. They spent like $15 billion, which, yeah, Facebook has $15 billion to spend on research and development for their AI world, their virtual reality world. And it was a total failure. But, you look at that and you're like, yeah, so what aren't you telling us? You spent this incredible amount of money for this virtual world AI. So it's like, okay, that's possible, but is it also possible something else is going on that when you're not telling us about? No, it's just $15 billion for R&D. Yeah, okay. It seems a little bit off. And they recovered from that, and the Meta is apparently doing just fine, which seems a little bit odd. So the peak of TV crossed over with the meshing of TV and social media, but then people started to leave TV and movies behind and just use social media, and it became really widespread, just this massively parallel network, and people realized how fake and gay TV or movies actually were, where everything was nerfed, yet always was blonde people bad. So people started to go to live streams to catch a different narrative, which is getting back to reality, and it turns out that reality is not politically correct, which is awesome. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys all next episode.